Hello everyone, and welcome back to Sun Moon Audiobook, the channel where we share wisdom and inspiring book journeys to help you grow and develop your best self, inside and out. Raw hunger has a sound. It's the sound of a heart that beats a little faster whenever it imagines a better life. The sound of breath catching at the thought of freedom. The sound of longing that never fully quiets down. You know that sound, don't you? That restless thrum inside that whispers, there has to be more than this. More than scraping by. More than waiting for luck. More than surviving when you were made to thrive. That sound is the beginning of wealth. Not the wealth of coins or paper, but the wealth of possibility. The wealth of a mind ready to shift from chains to wings. Harv Eker, the man behind Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, understands this intimately. He was not born into wealth. He did not inherit the polished keys to an easy life. His journey began with frustration, with falling down more times than he could count, with watching opportunities slip away. And yet, from the very soil of struggle, he discovered the flame that would not bow to darkness. The realization that wealth begins not in a bank account, but in the mind. His voice carries both urgency and compassion because he knows what it feels like to sit where you are now, wondering why success feels like it belongs to others, why abundance seems to visit everyone else's house but passes yours by. He speaks as someone who has walked in the valley and found the climb to the peak. And now, he holds out a hand to show you the way. At the core of his message lies a truth that may sound almost too simple, yet it is the foundation upon which everything else rests. Your outer world is a mirror of your inner world. Money, success, abundance. These are not accidents. They are reflections. They are the echo of the thoughts you carry, the beliefs you cling to, the invisible patterns etched into your mind. You cannot plant seeds of scarcity and expect a harvest of abundance. You cannot repeat the mantras of limitation and expect wealth to appear. The soil of your mind decides what grows in the garden of your life. And that is why Eker insists, change your mind and you change your money. One of his most powerful metaphors is the financial thermostat. Imagine your life like a house with a hidden thermostat that controls the temperature. Even if the outside heat surges or the cold bites, the thermostat pulls everything back to its preset level. So it is with money. If your internal setting is programmed low, if deep down you believe you are only worthy of survival, of scraping by, of just enough, then even if money flows to you, you will unconsciously find ways to return to that preset. You will overspend, self-sabotage, or let fear drive your choices. But if your thermostat is set high, if your inner script declares abundance, worthiness, possibility, then even when setbacks come, you will rise again. You will find pathways, opportunities, and resilience because your mind refuses to settle for less than what it believes is natural. This thermostat, this blueprint, is written early in our lives. Think of the words you heard as a child. Money doesn't grow on trees. Rich people are greedy. We can't afford that. These phrases, repeated in tender years, carve grooves in the mind. They form the silent architecture of how you see money, how you relate to it, how you chase it or hide from it. And unless we question these inherited scripts, they become laws we follow without even knowing we are obeying them. The wealthy do not simply have more money, they carry a different script, a different story whispered into their ears, or chosen consciously later in life. And that story is the soil from which everything else grows. The first shift Eker invites us into is ownership. He says plainly that rich people believe they create their life, while poor people believe life happens to them. This is not about blame, but about power. If you believe you are a victim of circumstance, then your hands are tied. Your future is already written. But if you choose to believe you are the creator of your life, even with limitations and challenges, then suddenly you stand at the drafting table of your destiny. You no longer wait for luck. You design change. You no longer curse the rain. You plant seeds that thrive in it. The mantra he repeats is clear. If you want to change the fruits, you must first change the roots. If you want to change the visible, you must first transform the invisible. Pause for a moment here, because this is where the heart aches. Maybe you, listening now, feel the weight of old beliefs pressing on your chest. Maybe part of you has always felt at the mercy of life, of jobs that don't pay enough, of bills that never end, of opportunities that seem locked behind doors only others have the keys to. It is heavy, isn't it? And it feels unfair. But listen closely. Eker is not saying the weight isn't real. He is saying you can build the strength to lift it, and more than that, you can rewrite the story so the weight no longer defines you. Wealth begins when you dare to whisper, "I am not a victim. I am a creator." That whisper is your flame in the darkness. Another powerful truth Eker unveils is the difference in how wealthy people and struggling people think about opportunity. The poor mindset whispers, "I can't afford it," while the wealthy mindset asks, "How can I afford it?" One shuts the door. The other leaves it open. One ends the story. The other invites creativity. When you say, "I can't," your mind accepts defeat and looks no further. But when you ask, "How can I?" your mind becomes a searchlight, scanning the horizon for solutions, for paths, for possibilities. This simple shift in language can transform the trajectory of your life. Because opportunity rarely arrives gift-wrapped, it often waits behind questions bold enough to seek it out. Think of figures like Oprah Winfrey, who came from poverty and hardship. She did not ask if life would hand her abundance, she asked how she could rise, how she could learn, how she could create. Or Elon Musk, who after selling PayPal, could have retired into comfort. Instead, he kept asking, "How can I build something that changes the world?" That relentless curiosity, that refusal to close the door, is the difference between lives of quiet frustration and lives of extraordinary impact. And yet, even as we explore these shifts, there is a tenderness needed here. Because changing beliefs is not easy. It is not like flipping a switch. It is more like tending a garden. You notice the weeds of old scripts. "I'm not good with money. You'll never be rich. Success is for them, not me." And then, patiently, you pull them out. Sometimes they grow back, but you pull again. And alongside, you plant new seeds. "I am worthy of abundance. Money is a tool for good. I create my financial destiny." With care, with repetition, with faith, the garden changes. The thermostat shifts. The mirror begins to reflect a new truth. I remember once sitting in a cafe, watching a young couple count coins to pay for their coffee, their faces etched with worry. In that moment, I felt the echo of my own past struggles. The nights of wondering if the rent would clear, the shame of choosing which bill to delay. And I realized that money is never just about money, it is about dignity, about possibility, about the way we see ourselves in the world. That memory pressed into me the importance of these teachings, because wealth is not about greed or vanity. It is about freedom, about lifting the weight so you can breathe, so you can create, so you can live with open hands instead of clenched fists. And so we return to the soil of the mind, because everything grows from there. Harv Eker speaks often about the idea that thoughts lead to feelings, feelings lead to actions, and actions lead to results. It sounds simple, almost too obvious, but when you slow down and trace it in your own life, you see the truth of it. The belief "I am not capable" creates feelings of fear or hesitation, which lead to timid actions, or no actions at all, which then create results that reinforce the belief. A loop, a cycle. But imagine instead planting the thought "I am resourceful and capable of learning." That thought ignites feelings of confidence and possibility, which inspire bold action, which then creates results that strengthen the new belief. The loop still exists, but now it lifts instead of traps. The invisible script always precedes the visible story. Eker does not just stop at beliefs. He leans into the way wealthy people relate to responsibility. Those who live with a scarcity mindset often externalize blame. They say, "It's the economy, it's my boss, it's my past." Each excuse feels comforting in the moment, but it steals power in the long run. Responsibility, on the other hand, can feel heavy because it means owning your choices, your mindset, your results. But that heaviness is also a key. It unlocks the door to control because if you created it, you can change it. If your old thinking built the life you see now, then new thinking can build the life you desire. Rich people hold responsibility close like a compass. Poor people push it away like a burden. Yet the compass leads to freedom, while avoidance circles back to the same dead ends. One of the emotional anchors in this book is the mantra, if you want to change the fruits, you must first change the roots. It bears repeating because the fruits, the money, the job, the lifestyle are often where we place all our attention. But tugging at fruits without tending roots is like painting over rotting wood. It looks improved for a moment, but the decay spreads underneath. The roots, your beliefs, your identity, your unconscious scripts must be tended first. Wealth is not an accident. It is cultivated. Another principle Eker emphasizes is that wealthy people think big, while poor people think small. To think small is to shrink dreams to match fear. To think big is to expand dreams to match potential. The small mind asks, what if I fail? The big mind asks, what if I succeed? The small mind says, I don't want to risk losing. The big mind says, I want to risk living fully. Thinking big is not arrogance, it is courage. It is choosing to believe that your life has space for greatness, that your contribution matters, that abundance is not only allowed, but meant for you. You, listening now, may feel a tug here. Maybe life has taught you to think small, to lower expectations, to not get your hopes up. It is safer, isn't it? Safer to dream quietly than to announce bold visions and risk embarrassment. But let me tell you gently, safety and freedom rarely live in the same house. The wealthy mindset chooses expansion because they know the world is not divided into winners and losers, but into those who dare and those who settle. Which side will you stand on? Eker also draws a stark line between focusing on opportunities and focusing on obstacles. Poor people, he says, fix their gaze on the problems. They see what cannot be done, what might go wrong, what stands in the way. Wealthy people focus on opportunities. They see what could be done, what might work, what could grow. This does not mean ignoring problems. Problems exist, but it means choosing where to direct your energy. Focus is fuel. Whatever you feed grows. Feed your obstacles and they swell. Feed your opportunities and they blossom. History is full of examples. Thomas Edison, failing thousands of times before inventing the light bulb, chose to see each failure as an opportunity to learn. J.K. Rowling, rejected by countless publishers, chose to see every no as one step closer to the yes that would change her life. Opportunity is rarely obvious, but it is always present if you choose to look. Perhaps one of the hardest teachings in this book is about comfort. Poor people, Eker says, choose comfort over growth. Wealthy people choose growth over comfort. This is not about chasing pain for its own sake, but about understanding that growth lives just beyond the edge of comfort, never within it. Think of a muscle. It grows only when stretched, when pushed, when torn slightly and rebuilt stronger. The same is true of your financial muscle, your resilience muscle, your courage muscle. Comfort feels good, but it keeps you small. Growth feels uncomfortable, but it expands your life. The question becomes, do you want the fleeting ease of comfort now, or the lasting freedom of growth later? This is where the emotional pause often comes. Because you may be thinking, but I'm tired. I've tried before. I don't know if I have the strength to stretch again. And that is valid. That is human. But hear this. Growth does not demand perfection. It only asks for willingness. You do not have to leap mountains today. You only have to take one small step outside the circle of comfort. One conversation, one book, one new choice. Change accumulates like drops of water filling a cup. It is slow at first, invisible even, until one day the cup overflows and you realize you have built a new life. You are capable of that. You are worthy of that. Another truth woven throughout Eker's work is that wealthy people are willing to be bigger than their fears. Fear does not disappear with wealth. Fear whispers to everyone, but wealthy people feel the fear and move anyway. They understand that fear is not a stop sign, but a signal that you are stepping into unfamiliar ground, which is precisely where growth waits. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action in spite of fear. And in that, wealthy people find their edge. Poor people wait for fear to leave before moving, but fear rarely leaves unchallenged. Wealth is not the reward of the fearless, but the harvest of the courageous. When courage meets discipline, something extraordinary happens. Harv Eker reminds us that the wealthy treat money as a tool, not as an emotional anchor. Poor people often let money control them when they have it. They feel safe. When they lose it, they feel desperate. When they dream of it, they treat it like a savior that could fix everything. But the wealthy separate money from identity. To them, money is a servant, not a master. It is a vehicle to create freedom, to amplify values, to fuel possibilities. When you see money this way, you stop fearing it and start directing it. You stop asking it to define you and instead let it serve your purpose. There is also the truth about management. Eker insists that managing money is not something you do once you are rich, it is something you must do now, even with the smallest amounts. If you cannot handle a little, you cannot handle a lot. Many people say, when I make more, I'll start saving, I'll start investing, I'll start planning. But they never do because habits do not magically appear with abundance. Habits must be planted in scarcity so they can flourish in abundance. And when courage meets discipline, something extraordinary happens. Harv Eker reminds us that the wealthy treat money as a tool, not as an emotional anchor. Poor people often let money control them when they have it. They feel safe. When they lose it, they feel desperate. When they dream of it, they treat it like a savior that could fix everything. But the wealthy separate money from identity. To them, money is a servant, not a master. It is a vehicle to create freedom, to amplify values, to fuel possibilities. When you see money this way, you stop fearing it and start directing it. You stop asking it to define you and instead let it serve your purpose. There is also the truth about management. Eker insists that managing money is not something you do once you are rich, it is something you must do now, even with the smallest amounts. If you cannot handle a little, you cannot handle a lot. Many people say, when I make more, I'll start saving, I'll start investing, I'll start planning. But they never do because habits do not magically appear with abundance. Habits must be planted in scarcity so they can flourish in abundance. Wealthy people respect money enough to manage it carefully, to direct it like water through channels that nourish growth. Poor people often treat money carelessly, allowing it to slip through their fingers, then wondering why it never stays. This difference in respect is one of the quiet but powerful dividing lines between struggle and security. A simple example Eker often shares is the use of separate jars, or accounts. Dividing money into different purposes, necessities, savings, investments, education, play, giving. It may sound almost childish at first, but the wisdom runs deep. By consciously directing money, you teach your mind that you are in control. You create patterns of responsibility and generosity, discipline and joy. Even with small amounts, the act of dividing teaches your mind abundance. You stop telling yourself, I can't, and start proving to yourself, I can, even with little. And that mindset compounds. It expands with time, creating the structure that can hold greater wealth when it arrives. Another principle is the way wealthy people view other wealthy people. Poor people often carry resentment, bitterness, or suspicion toward the rich. They say, they must be greedy, they must have cheated, they must have gotten lucky. These judgments may feel harmless, but they poison the soil of the mind. If you believe wealthy people are bad, then unconsciously you will resist becoming wealthy yourself. You will sabotage opportunities because deep down you fear becoming what you despise. Wealthy people, on the other hand, admire and learn from other wealthy people. They say, if they can do it, so can I. What can I learn from their story, their strategies, their mindset? They see wealth not as a symbol of greed, but as a sign of possibility. And by holding that view, they open themselves to stepping into it without guilt. Think of someone like Warren Buffett, who has lived modestly despite being one of the richest men alive, or Sarah Blakely, who built Spanx from a few $1,000s into a billion-dollar company while maintaining generosity and humility. Their wealth is not rooted in corruption, but in vision, resilience, and service. If you see wealth as possibility, you allow yourself to step toward it. If you see it as corruption, you will forever distance yourself from it. The choice of perspective quietly decides your future. There is also the matter of focus on growth versus security. Poor people crave security above all else. They want guarantees, promises, certainty. But life rarely offers that. Wealthy people, instead of clinging to security, focus on growth. They understand that security is an illusion if it means staying stagnant. True security comes from capacity, from adaptability, from growing skills and mindset so that no matter what changes outside, they can rebuild, they can pivot, they can thrive. When the world shifts, and it always does, those who sought comfort crumble, while those who sought growth rise stronger. In this way, Eker's teachings echo through countless stories of resilience. Steve Jobs was fired from Apple, the very company he created. Many would have collapsed into despair, but he saw it as growth, built Next and Pixar, and returned to Apple to create one of the greatest business comebacks in history. Growth over security. Or Nelson Mandela, who spent decades in prison yet emerged with wisdom and forgiveness, becoming a leader who transformed a nation. Though not about money, his story reflects the same truth. Security is fleeting, but growth endures. And here is where Eker's message pierces deeply. It is not enough to simply know these principles. Knowledge without action is like a seed never planted. It holds potential but produces nothing. Wealthy people act, even when uncertain, even when afraid. Poor people wait for perfect timing, for guaranteed success, for the feeling of readiness that never comes. The wealthy understand that action creates clarity. You learn by doing, by failing forward, by moving. Life does not hand abundance to those who only dream. It offers it to those who dare. You who are listening right now may feel the tug of hesitation. You may think, I've tried before, and I failed. You may worry that action will only bring more disappointment. But pause and imagine this. Every person who now lives in abundance once stood where you stand on the edge of uncertainty, unsure, trembling, but willing. They did not wait for fear to leave. They carried it with them into action. And because they acted, fear lost its power. That same possibility lives in you. And so, the thread that runs through all of Eker's teachings tightens into one luminous truth. Wealth is not first about money, it is about identity. Who you believe yourself to be determines how you think, how you act, what you pursue, and what you allow. Poor people identify with limitation, saying, I am not someone who can be wealthy. Wealthy people identify with abundance, saying, I am someone who creates wealth. That difference may sound subtle, but it is the very hinge on which lives swing open or closed. Identity is the soil. Everything else is the harvest. Eker goes further to explain that the wealthy are not simply takers, as society often paints them, but givers. True abundance does not hoard, it circulates. Wealthy people give generously because they understand that money is energy, and energy grows when it flows. Poor people often cling tightly to money, afraid it will disappear, and in that tightness, they choke the very flow they need. Giving, even in small amounts, sends a powerful message to the mind. I have enough. I am enough. That message shifts the thermostat upward. And as generosity grows, so too does capacity. Generosity also dissolves guilt. Many people fear wealth because they have been taught it is selfish. But wealth in the hands of the generous is transformative. It builds schools, funds hospitals, supports communities, fuels dreams. Think of Bill and Melinda Gates, who have devoted billions to eradicating diseases, or Mackenzie Scott, who has given away vast portions of her fortune to causes that uplift countless lives. Their wealth did not corrupt them. It amplified their ability to give. To despise wealth is to despise the possibility of impact. To embrace wealth is to embrace responsibility, to say, I will use what I create to expand good in the world. This is where the personal reflection lingers quietly. I remember standing once at the edge of a river, watching how the water bent around stones, how it refused to be stopped. Even when blocked, it found a new path. In that moment, I realized wealth is like water. It is not meant to be clutched in fists, but guided, channeled, shared. When hoarded, it stagnates. When released, it nourishes. And I understood then that my own fear of money was never about money itself, but about whether I trusted myself to let it flow with integrity. That moment softened me, made me see that abundance was not a threat, but a trust. Eker urges us to make peace with wealth, to see it not as something other people have, not as something to be feared, but as something natural, something available, something you can grow into with courage and care. And he insists that this peace begins in thought. Mantra becomes a tool here. One of his most memorable lines is, "Rich people believe I create my life. Poor people believe life happens to me." Repeat that often enough, and the words begin to sink from the mind into the heart. They begin to reshape identity. They become the whisper in the dark when old fears creep in. But he also teaches about modeling. If you want to become wealthy, study those who already are. Not to copy every action, but to absorb mindset, to learn patterns, to see what is possible. Poor people distance themselves from the wealthy, either in resentment or disbelief. Wealthy people draw near, learning, asking, applying. This simple shift, choosing to study success rather than envy, it opens doors that jealousy keeps locked. And as you walk through these teachings, there comes a point of reckoning, the midpoint pause. The moment where the old self and the new self stand face to face. The old self clings to comfort, whispers of failure, fears of judgment. The new self beckons toward possibility, toward a life not yet lived, but waiting. And in that pause, you must decide. Not all at once, not perfectly, but in small, courageous acts. Will you feed the old or the new? Will you plant scarcity or abundance? Will you see yourself as victim or creator? This is not theory. It is a lived question that only you can answer over and over again each day. Gentle hope arises here because the decision is never final, never out of reach. Each morning is a new canvas. Each choice is a new brushstroke. You are not trapped by the past. You are sculpted by the present. If you choose to think differently, to act differently, even in small ways, the trajectory of your life bends. And though change may not come overnight, it will come. Just as dawn cannot be hurried but always arrives, abundance flows where the roots are tended, where the soil is made ready. And once that dawn begins to rise, you start to see the world through a different lens. Harv Eker emphasizes that wealthy people play the game of money to win, while poor people play the game not to lose. It is a subtle but critical difference. Playing not to lose means moving cautiously, clinging to safety, settling for just enough to get by. Playing to win means aiming for abundance, daring to go beyond survival, pursuing wealth as a tool to create freedom and impact. When you play small, you shrink into the corners of life, content with scraps. When you play to win, you step fully onto the field, willing to risk mistakes because you know victory belongs only to those who play. This attitude shift creates ripple effects in behavior. The wealthy commit fully to success, while the poor often only wish for it. To wish is to lean lightly, ready to step back at the first sign of resistance. To commit is to burn the ships, to say, "There is no going back. I will do what it takes." That kind of commitment shapes decisions differently. It sharpens focus, deepens resilience, fuels persistence. Without commitment, obstacles stop you. With commitment, obstacles become puzzles to solve. The wealthy do not always succeed immediately, but they refuse to stop moving until success is carved from stone. And this leads to the principle of consistency. Wealth is not created by one grand gesture, but by countless small choices compounded over time. saving a portion, investing wisely, saying yes to growth, saying no to self-sabotage. Each decision may feel small in isolation, but together they build momentum. Poor people often look for the lottery ticket, the one big break that will change everything overnight. Wealthy people understand that wealth is built like a wall, brick by brick, day by day. The consistency is what protects and grows it. Eker reminds us too that wealthy people are willing to promote themselves and their value, while poor people shrink back, afraid of rejection or judgment. This does not mean arrogance or manipulation, but confidence in the worth of what you offer. If you believe your skills, your ideas, your service bring genuine value, why would you hide it? Wealthy people understand that visibility matters, that sharing your gifts is not selfish but necessary. Poor people let fear silence them, and in that silence, opportunities wither. Think of someone like Walt Disney, who faced bankruptcy and rejection time and again, but kept promoting his vision, kept telling his story, kept showing his value until the world finally saw it too. If he had stayed silent after the first failure, there would be no Disney empire, no stories that touched millions. Promotion is not about ego. It is about persistence and shining your light until others can see it. As these ideas accumulate, you begin to see the larger truth. Wealth is a mindset that creates habits, and habits create results. But wealth is also an energy that expands with generosity, courage, and growth. It is not only about money, but about how you see yourself, how you see others, how you see possibility. Eker's voice insists again and again, you are not limited by your past. You are not defined by the scarcity you inherited. You are capable of rewiring your blueprint, of resetting your financial thermostat, of creating a life of abundance. And perhaps this is the quietest but most important lesson, that wealth is not only about having more, but about becoming more. Becoming someone who can hold abundance with integrity. Becoming someone who can share it without fear. Becoming someone who does not shrink in the face of opportunity, but steps forward. The Millionaire Mind is not about greed. It is about growth, generosity, courage, and freedom. So what can you do now, in the tenderness of this moment? Begin small. Notice your language. Replace "I can't" with "How can I?" Replace "That's impossible" with "What if it's possible?" Begin managing the money you have, even if it feels like too little. Divide it, respect it, guide it. Begin giving, even in small amounts, to train your heart in abundance. Begin stretching outside comfort, one step at a time. Each small action shifts your blueprint. Each choice lifts your thermostat. Each step brings you closer to the life waiting for you. And now, as the strands of his message weave together, imagine the old beliefs like walls around you, heavy, tall, cold. But now, cracks appear. Light slips in. With each new thought, each new action, the walls weaken. One day they crumble entirely, and you find yourself standing in a wide open field, the horizon limitless, the sky vast, the future unbound. That is the promise of a millionaire mind, not that you will never face challenges, but that you will always rise above them. Because your roots are deep, your blueprint is strong, and your spirit is free. And as you stand in that open field, Eker leaves you with the reminder that the difference between those who live in scarcity and those who live in abundance often comes down to a willingness to stretch into possibility. Wealthy people are willing to think differently, to act differently, to take paths that feel uncertain but hold promise. Poor people cling to what is familiar, even if it hurts, because familiarity feels safer than change. But true safety does not live in the walls of the familiar. It lives in the wings of growth. To step into wealth is to step into the unknown with trust that you will learn to fly. Eker also emphasizes that wealthy people are not afraid to be bigger than their problems. Poor people shrink from challenges, hoping life will ease up, hoping problems will vanish. But problems rarely disappear. They grow with you, they evolve, they appear as constant companions on the path of life. The wealthy understand this and choose to grow bigger than their problems, to expand capacity until what once seemed overwhelming now feels manageable. It is not that wealthy people have fewer problems, it is that they refuse to stay small. They rise, they stretch, they outgrow the very obstacles that once pinned them down. And in that growth, freedom is found. This principle echoes across the lives of so many great figures. Nelson Mandela grew bigger than the injustice that tried to break him. Oprah grew bigger than the pain of her past, transforming it into a platform for healing millions. Problems did not vanish for them. They became the soil in which resilience bloomed. So too in your life, the problems you face are invitations, not punishments. Invitations to grow bigger, to rise higher, to become more. Another core idea is the importance of association. Wealthy people associate with successful, positive, growth-oriented individuals. Poor people often surround themselves with those who confirm their fears, their limitations, their excuses. Who you spend time with shapes you silently. Their language becomes your language. Their beliefs seep into your thinking. Their ceilings become your ceilings. Wealthy people are intentional about who they allow close. They seek mentors. They join communities that expand their thinking. They walk with those who lift them higher. If you want to shift your blueprint, begin with your circle. If you cannot yet find wealthy mentors, immerse yourself in their voices through books, podcasts, teachings. Let their energy recalibrate your own. Eker stresses this. Energy is contagious. Surround yourself with scarcity and you will catch its fear. Surround yourself with abundance and you will catch its courage. You, listening right now, know this in your bones. Think of how you feel after time with someone who always complains, who always doubts. Heavy, drained, smaller. Now think of how you feel after time with someone who dreams, who believes, who encourages. Lighter, expanded, braver. The company you keep is the soil your roots grow in. Choose carefully because your future depends on it. And then there is persistence. Wealthy people stay the course. Poor people give up at the first, second, or third setback. Persistence is not glamorous. It is often quiet, repetitive, unnoticed. But it is the secret heartbeat of wealth. It is Thomas Edison trying thousands of times, J.K. Rowling facing rejection after rejection, Sarah Blakely selling fax machines while dreaming of Spanx. Persistence turns failures into stepping stones. It is the refusal to let a no be final, the insistence that each obstacle is simply a teacher in disguise. This persistence requires trust. Trust that the seeds you plant will grow, even when the soil looks barren. Trust that the actions you take matter, even when results are delayed. Trust that your future self will thank you for what feels difficult today. Wealthy people cultivate that trust through vision. They see not only where they are, but where they are going. That vision fuels persistence. Without vision, discouragement wins. With vision, persistence endures. And perhaps the final, most liberating truth Eker offers is this. Money is not the end. It is the means. The millionaire mind does not worship money. It respects it, uses it, directs it. Wealth is not the goal. Freedom, growth, and impact are. When money becomes the master, even the wealthy feel poor. When money becomes the servant, even small beginnings feel rich. The point of shifting your blueprint, of raising your thermostat, of expanding your mindset is not simply to count dollars, but to count freedom. The freedom to live aligned with your values, to give generously, to create boldly, to rest without fear. And here, at the closing of this long journey, you may feel a stirring inside. The old script whispers still, but quieter now. The new script hums gently, waiting to be spoken louder. You may feel hope rising, fragile but real. Hold on to it, nurture it. Repeat to yourself the mantras that have echoed here. If you want to change the fruits, you must first change the roots. If you want to change the visible, you must first transform the invisible. You are not a victim. You are a creator. These truths are not meant to sit as words in your mind, but to take root, to grow, to bloom into the life you desire. So take a small step today. Write down one old belief about money you will no longer accept. Replace it with one new belief you will choose to repeat. Take one action, however small, that honors abundance, saving a coin, giving a little, learning a skill, speaking up for your value. One step becomes two, two become 10, and soon the field is open before you. Imagine now a seed planted in dark soil. For a long time, nothing seems to happen. But under the surface, roots are spreading, reaching, preparing. Then one day, a green shoot breaks through. Tiny, fragile, yet unshakable. That is you, with the millionaire mind. Growth unseen at first, then undeniable, then unstoppable. And as we close, I want to invite you gently. If these words have lit even the smallest flame in you, hold on to it, nurture it, share it. Let others feel the warmth of your growth. If this message has touched you, take a moment to like, to share, to comment with your reflections. Tell me what resonated, what shifted in you, what questions remain. Your voice matters. Your story matters. Your engagement creates ripples that inspire others to rise too. And if you haven't yet, subscribe, so we can keep walking together through these journeys of transformation. Because the millionaire mind is not built in a day, it is cultivated in community, in shared stories, in repeated truths. May you carry this flame into your days ahead. May you rewrite your blueprint with courage. May you step beyond comfort into growth, beyond scarcity into abundance, beyond fear into freedom. And may you always remember, the wealth of your life begins in the soil of your mind, and you are the gardener, the creator, the light.